Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of The Winner's Circle. I'm your host, Samer Bawab. Today, I have a very special guest and longtime friend. Her name is Ceem Haidar. She's a standout voice in the world of communication strategies and an old friend with a track record that's hard to beat. Ceem's wizard behind the curtain boasts over 15 years in the game. We're talking top-notch corporate communication, content that cuts through the noise, and digital strategies that stick. She's also helping top leaders amplify their message, and she's the coach that turns those speakers into people that can influence. Her journey started at LAU University, mastering communication arts, followed by an Executive MBA journey at ESA Business School, which is also in collaboration of ESCP Europe. She then left her thumbprint on industry giants and working for companies like Porter Novelli, Deloitte, and leading the charge in public relations across the entire region. So that's not all. Ceem then took an entrepreneurial leap, co-founding the Commery and shaping communication for some of the biggest names out there. And in 2020, she launched Ment, and essentially pouring her expertise into a boutique consultancy that's really all about strategic communication, creating impact with content that she's creating, and telling their real story. Everyone, get your coffee ready, and I'm super excited to start a conversation with one of the top leaders of her game. Let's get into it. Good afternoon, Ceem. Thank you so much for joining. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. It's a pleasure to have you, really.
I sound quite impressive on paper, don't I?
Yes. Usually that's the case, but really, I mean, it's an impressive background. You can't make this up. So super pumped. So again, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit about your background, your story, jumping into maybe some prolific events that may have happened, but let's go ahead and get started. So, Ceem, tell us what's going on. Tell us maybe, we can start with maybe your journey. I'd love to hear from you, and we can go from there. So go ahead.
So I think we'll start with my professional journey that kicked off in Lebanon. I moved here 20 years ago. And as you said, I worked with different companies, agencies, multinationals, but I think the most pivotal part was when at 26 decided to quit the safe corporate world where everything was secure and just launch my entrepreneurial journey. And my dad at the time was completely against it. He came from a very risk averse background.
Sure.
And here his daughter at 26 is saying, I'm betting everything and I'm going in. And so I had to submit a business plan to him.
No way.
Yes. And to showcase, what clients I have in the pipeline and where
before you could kind of
before I was allowed actually
world.
to. And so that started, and we ran the first company that we founded for 7 years. I was teaching at LAU at the time, which was also a daunting task. And then I founded Ment in January 2020, and the rest is history. Yep.
Amazing. That's really cool. And today you guys are still operating. You're growing the team. You're kind of moving forward across the region. That's amazing. And Ceem, for someone at a young age like that, especially as you mentioned, you had pressure from your dad, maybe pressure from others around you. I'm curious, a lot of people in your shoes, they would have stayed in corporate. They would have stayed kind of continuing to learn, continuing to grow. I guess, when did you start realize that you want to kind of go on your own? And I guess, what was the reasoning behind it versus staying in that safe place?
It was knowing that I could do much more, and I didn't want to be confined with corporate structures. It was knowing that I had so much value to offer to clients from different industries. So that's why I founded my company. That's why I took that leap. Yeah.
Amazing. So kind of taking that winning strategies, what you've learned, that's really great. Awesome. And I guess maybe tell us, obviously, what about these first clients? I've started my own business before. It's not easy. Yeah. You don't know, honestly, sometimes what to expect. So what are some maybe challenges that you saw, I guess, servicing a client with some of your background? And I'd love to hear more about that.
So I think for anyone that wants to become an entrepreneur, you need to have that conviction and that drive, because it's not easy. It's one of the most challenging things. And I remember the first client was through a referral. I was in San Diego at the time vacationing, and I got a call. We want you to work on a Converse event. And I'm like, fantastic, okay, but I'm not there at the moment. And I flew back in, And then the second client came in, a big corporate client working in insurance.
Yeah.
And he saw me and my business partner were two young women, but we had so much drive and energy. And he also bet on us. So that's how it started. And I love
How'd
telling
the campaign go, by the way, if you don't mind me
It was
asking?
great. And then we did like 4 other events for Converse at the time, and we were collaborating with the global teams. But when we started, our offices were in Azariya, and we both weren't working. We both didn't have income. We didn't tell our parents that. And so we didn't even have, the system to put electricity in the office. So we had to wait for a few hours of electricity, but we were hustling. And then we would put together 1,000, 2,000 liras, walk up to Bshar al-Khoury, get falafel, literally.
Just to make it happen.
To make it happen. And our parents had no idea what we were doing.
Wow.
And then thankfully, a few months in, things started to roll and get easier on us. But it was definitely something I look back on fondly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I think too, we kind of all have our own kind of starting journey, and it sounds like yours was not exactly as planned. So no, that's really great. So, Ceem, so you're Lebanese, you were born here, right? No way. No. Tell us a little more.
I was born in London and then lived there for some time and then moved to LA, lived there for 5 years.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia for 12.
Okay.
My entire school life.
Sure.
And then moved here.
And you're English educated?
Yeah.
Okay, got
English,
it.
Yep.
Amazing.
And then I hope it shows that I'm English.
Yeah, kids, your accent is perfect. Come on.
And then I moved here in 2004, which was, I think, the worst time. Because we came from, a very safe background.
Yeah, it was right before the Israeli war in 2006,
and
right?
the assassination of Hariri, and then the assassination of everyone.
Wow.
All the leaders. So it was quite tough. It was quite tough.
Sure. And as far as, like you said, but would you say a lot of that diversity in your background, like as far as being moving and that transition, would you say that maybe shaped to kind of help you in these times now, or?
It definitely does, and it did, because the school that we were in Saudi, in Jeddah, the British school, we had people around us, even the teachers and the students from 52 different nationalities.
Wow.
So that really opened up my eyes to the world, honed my curiosity, a respect for different people, cultures, backgrounds, and now I have friends all over the world, which is fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah. That's really great. Yeah. And even for myself, as being a kind of Lebanese, Hungarian, born in the US, like for me, I had foreign parents, right? And I like to say they were fresh off the boat, but that's really great. And I definitely think it's become kind of my identity, right? And I still go back to that, right? And having come here and seeing more of Lebanon, and that's great. So awesome. So Ceem, I'd like to talk a little bit more about something maybe a little more personal. I know you recently lost your father, Allahu. I also lost my dad, so we kind of have this, I guess you could say, connection that way.
Yeah.
And we talk about role models and figures in your life, and in my case, of course, my dad was everything for me, right? And even though we had a long distance relationship, and I was in the US and he was here, it was profound, right? So he had a big impact on me, and I'd love to maybe just hear a little bit more about your dad and maybe how he's kind of shaped your life, and maybe the event of what happened kind of put you to where you are. So just tell me a little more if you'd like.
So Dad, and it's not just me saying that, it's actually everyone that had the pleasure of meeting him,
Sure.
even if it was just a handshake and a quick word. He was charismatic and had this wonderful grounding presence, but also hilarious, but also super serious. And what I take from him is the steadfast approach. Whenever he was met with a challenge, he was always powering through, overcoming it, whilst enjoying life and really living life.
And what was his background?
Electromechanical engineering, computer science.
Sure.
And he reinvented himself quite a few times, and he would really want to dig in and learn about new industries, and that's something that characterizes his personality. And he was, for me, a mentor. He was a best friend. Like, we used to hang out and listen to music, and he would tell me stories about Lebanon.
And it was always like that. There was never a period you guys were maybe away. That's great.
I lived my entire life in the family home, and I think that's a blessing. And then he started getting sick, and we didn't really understand the illness at the start.
Sure.
Parkinson's, and then Parkinson's became Parkinson's plus, and the plus is not a positive thing. It's actually a very negative thing.
Sure.
And it's just interesting to see someone so strong and their lights start to be dimmed, and what you learn in that process
Sure.
of losing them, all while being caring for him when he was getting more and more sick. We were going through thawra, economic crisis,
Absolutely.
COVID, the blast, and I was running my company at the same time. But when I would get to breaking point, I would realize how strong I actually am. And it was only till recently that I realized the strength that I had to go through that.
Sure.
Still smile, still show up for my
Still give it your
clients.
best.
Exactly. So I'm grateful for the experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He sounds a lot like my dad,
Yeah.
to be honest. My dad was kind of 100% Lebanese, like kind of not this war mind, but he's kind of his way or the highway, right?
Yeah.
So like if for me specifically, I mean, he was on my ass all the time. study, homework. After that, go back to study. And for me, I mean, I always asked him, why do you care so much about me? Like, well, what do you like? Why don't you mind your own business? Like I would literally tell him that. And for him, it was unconditional love, right? And I never really appreciated everything until he left.
Yeah.
Right. And it's amazing what you learn about someone when they leave. And I think maybe a lot of people can relate to us in the audience is they may have lost someone as well. They may be also in the hospital, like trying to help them and support them as maybe they're fighting something. So, obviously I had a very unique journey. Yours is very unique as well. But what were some things that you may have done to like help you overcome this huge loss, Ceem? Because we're all dealing with so much now with Gaza and the war and everything, but there are battles that we fight that maybe a lot of people don't know about. And with your battle, like, I'm just curious to know, like, maybe what helped you maybe in that dark time, and then maybe after he passed away, like what helped you kind of rise up? And I'll share as well what I did, but I'd love to hear from you.
So I think, tying back into this, I was very vocal about my journey and about my pain, and we don't have this in our culture. And I realized that the more open you are and you speak about where you're at, the more people will connect and be vulnerable as well. And I was at a dinner a year and a half ago, and I was speaking about my dad, and I had lost him at that point, and someone on the table starts crying. And I'm like, why is she crying? Turns out her father has Parkinson's too. And that was very hard on her.
Wow.
And a year and a half later, she reaches out to a mutual friend and says, can I sit down with Ceem? Because she knows the experience and I want to hear from her. So being vocal was very important, asking for help. I'm so well surrounded. It's my biggest blessing in life.
So what do you mean vocal? Like communicating the pain?
Yeah. Why would I hide that pain? I was smiling as much as I was crying, but I want people to see that, yes, it does hurt. So asking for support, maintaining your life, so not stopping your life just because you're going through a huge struggle. That's important to show up with purpose for yourself. And just really be well surrounded by people who love you and want you to succeed. And
kind of a tight support circle of your sisters, your mom.
My friends all over the world as well. So
that's really important. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think in my case too, Ceem, and God bless your father, it seemed he made a huge impact on not just your family, but kind of people he knew and interacted with, which just shows you kind of how powerful one person can be, right? So I think that's really amazing. I think with my case with dad is, obviously I wasn't born here. My dad was living here at the time. He had separated, and things happen fast, as you know, right? He was diagnosed, the treatment started, he was going into coma, and I was here, right? So like I did my best to kind of do my part while he was still here and eventually say goodbye, right? And I think you being in Lebanon, being able to be with him, and do you think like, hadn't you been somewhere else in the world, like, I guess, do you regret the decision of staying here and being with him, or is that something that you think about, like maybe you could be somewhere else? And go ahead.
I have no regrets when it comes to my father. And initially, everyone I think has guilt. Could I have done more? Could I have, spent more time? But my conscience is clear, and that's one of the biggest blessings of my life.
That's all.
And after he passed, I had actually gotten him, after he retired, to start writing his memoir, because he had all these animated stories about his life and adventures, and
that's so cool.
Dropping his passport into the sea when he was on a ship in Tokyo. Like he had so many great stories. So I put him up to it, and I was like, you're going to write these down and we're going to publish a memoir.
Wow.
And unfortunately, because of his illness and so on, I didn't get a chance to do it when he was around. So after he passed, 6 months later, it was his birthday. So I literally wrote a book about him, asked people to send their stories, and
That's so cool.
And I gifted it to him on his grave on his birthday. And that, I swear, like I just would watch people hold the book and then laugh at his stories and then cry and then laugh. And,
wow.
Yeah, and for me, it's a gift to commemorate him.
Sure.
Yeah.
And all those that maybe have, like,
Yeah.
as you said, crossed paths with him, and that's really great. So it's almost like a scrapbook or compilation of all like who your dad was and old pictures and things like that. That's great. And my last question, and we'll move on, is like, do you think that event was pivotal in maybe pushing you to that next level as far as like career-wise, like thinking-wise? I mean, for me personally, I was on a different track in life, right? I was working at a big corporate. I was dating someone, getting serious, and then boom, all of a sudden my world flipped upside down. So like, I guess, obviously it's a much longer journey and there was more to it, but would you say that could have been something that was a catalyst in your path? Or it sounds like you were already kind of going in that direction.
I think, I don't know if so much as a catalyst at the time, and specifically it took me quite a while to be able to, find my own purpose, because at that time my purpose was my father and giving him the best medical care and the love and the support and putting music for him and singing and so on, just to keep him upbeat.
Sure.
And I think after that my biggest challenge was finding my own purpose. He's gone, what?
Sure, you have this empty void.
Exactly.
How to fill
empty. It was just emptiness. I was like, okay, I can either say, I'm heartbroken and the world has shut down and I've lost the dearest person to me.
It feels like that sometimes.
It does, of course. Or I can be like, okay, now I have all this free time. What's my purpose? And I feel his voice like pushing me forward and, making me achieve the next big thing and find my own authentic voice. He's around, so yeah.
That's really amazing. And I guess what would be like one thing you could tell someone that's maybe going through a tragedy or something now? That would be like, for me, honestly, I didn't really have anybody to help me. So it may be interesting to hear from you, like, what could you tell someone now that's maybe has someone in the hospital or maybe has someone that's passed away? What would you tell them?
I would say ask for help, be well surrounded, take time off as well. You don't always have to be around people. Trust that you're going to go through that and get through it, because we always do. And also go to therapy. Yeah, I think that's important, to have someone who's impartial and outside.
In a safe place, and a safe person.
In a safe place.
That's not your parents.
Exactly.
Amazing. Yeah.
And, don't stop living. Maintain your life. Maintain your routine. Yeah. Show up. Go to work. See your friends. Even if you're broken inside, just keep showing up.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ceem. That's really powerful, really. And Jed, and I hope whoever's listening out there that, whatever you're going through, it gets better. It gets better, and it does, as you can see. So awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's paint a little positivity here. And, I'd like to hear, so you've been in PR, communications, there's a lot of different buzzwords going on around about that, but I guess tell us a little bit more about your vertical and your industry. Maybe you could describe it in a way or how it's maybe even changing. Obviously, you focus on the region, from what I understand, in some of the GCC countries as well. But if you want to just tell us a little bit more about maybe the market in general and what you guys are focusing on.
So what was interesting about that is when I started Ment in 2020, we went into COVID. I think it was a month later.
Sure, lockdown.
And everyone's like, you're crazy, you're starting a new company. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it. And then COVID came and my clients were actually international. I had clients, in Singapore and the UAE and in the States and the UK. And I was working from here. And as you remember, of course, I don't think any of us can forget, we had every single kind of crisis on there was no electricity. We had a fuel crisis. We had COVID. And I'm like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it happen. So that's, I think, has always been my approach. And so what I offer clients is basically one, transformation. So you come to me with your brand narrative, your website, your branding, and I'll be like, let's take a step back. Let's assess where we are in the market, where you're positioned, and how can we transform that and really make you stand out. And then you have the others, the startups who want to make their mark and put
Sure.
their amplify their presence or their voices. So I also work on the story and the content.
Also full scale, all the way from startup to
Yeah.
enterprise,
Yeah.
correct? Wow.
And it goes from everywhere from the strategy setting and how that cascades into the content, the brand voice, the narrative, into website development, branding design, and public speaking coaching, which I'm finding is much needed actually. So that's basically in a nutshell, and a lot of content. We write a lot of content.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I came to you once
Yeah.
for some copywriting.
For a script as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. You did a great job, by
Thank
the
you.
way. We
Thank
appreciate it. It was our video script that we're
Yeah.
still using. So amazing. And what do you see right now, Ceem, based on kind of talking to customers, working with different clients? What's the biggest need right now? I mean, you mentioned communication strategy, you mentioned some different things, website development, of course, that's kind of standard now, but tell us, like, maybe is there a higher need, like, for something like obviously what you're doing? Tell us.
Winning content that stands out, content that is industry specific, that's company specific, that reflects the company and the leaders' voices.
Sure.
There's huge demand for that. I'll give you one example. I was just in Thailand and Bangkok working on this huge event, 450 people.
Wow.
Not on my own, we were a team of 35.
Sure.
And I was responsible for the strategy and the content advisory and direction. So how do you really engage the audience with your story? How do you write your story?
Sure.
And that would translate into the coaching of the speakers to really amplify their voices and make their content stand out. And content could be on the slide and what it is that you're saying.
Sure.
So that's something that's in demand now. Yeah.
And even globally, I mean, you mentioned
Yes,
Thailand.
yeah.
Like, this is a client there. I mean, this is
a client that's actually global. And so
they're based there, though.
They're based in 4 geographies, so the Americas, Europe, MEA,
okay, so this
and
is the Asia
Pacific.
counterpart.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And that's that. Yeah, I think that's kind of getting into like kind of like my next question, Ceem, is like, okay, if I'm a big company or I'm a startup, why wouldn't I just go and hire like a big PR firm, credible. A lot, and I feel like a lot of companies will do that, right? It's the safe bet. It's like, these guys are proven, they're the brand, like the Deloittes or the, I think Ogilvy was another one in the US we used to work with. But tell us, like, what makes, I guess, your consulting and your offering, and right, and it seems like a very tough market, but tell us why I wouldn't go with one of those big players versus Ceem.
So thankfully, and I'm very grateful for this, I'll knock on wood, that I've never had to market my company or my services to get clients. They've all been through referrals. So there are people who have known me, worked with me, and so on. And that's how lead generation happens, which I'm very grateful for. And I think what sticks and where the loyalty comes in is it's very personalized as an approach.
Sure.
So it's not, this is the rate card.
Transactional.
Exactly.
And very
it's
black and white.
I want to dig into your business. I want to understand it. I want to understand your vision. I want to understand what you're thinking, and I want to.
Which takes trust as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And so I think that personalized approach, it's not rate card. It's more. I'll even tell clients, you know what? You don't actually need me for this. What you're doing is great. Let me just support you on this front. So that's what I think one of the key factors. And the level of service, like you can go on and read the testimonials on the website,
Sure.
but there is that trust that gets built, that loyalty, and I really make it a point to dig deep,
Sure.
to understand. And that's
uncover, layering questions,
Exactly.
getting to the root cause.
And that's
Wow.
very gratifying in a sense, because I learn about so many different industries. I actually learn from pharma to tech to fintech.
I was going to ask, yes, it's
to
quite
real estate.
diverse.
Yeah, very actually.
But it seems that even though they are, like you mentioned, pharma and these different, healthcare, et cetera, these big companies, it seems they kind of still have one underlying challenge, which is creating relevant, relatable content that creates, stronger customer experiences, things like that. What's maybe a project you're super proud of, Ceem? Like, well, maybe it was super tough at first, or I'd love to know, like, because I mean, we all have kind of like that one project where like, man, we nailed it, or maybe not. Maybe it's still like,
I think because we don't usually get to see the end result of our work and how that resonates with other people. So we're behind the scenes working on everything and so on. So I feel the events industry And the two that come to mind, both were in Bangkok, but the client is not based there. And the first one, we had been working on this for like 6 months. I was working with top leaders behind the scenes. I think there were like 36 different stakeholders, each one of them. I needed to get into their head. I needed to get what their message was, get what they want to say, script the opening video, and so on. And this was a huge event.
Wow.
And then I don't know what the impact is. I don't know how it's going to land.
Sure.
So coaching with them and building that personal relationship, so they trust me, and they trust me when they're on stage, and I tell them, I give them some advice. And then we get to Bangkok and showtime, and I was like, holy crap. I'm like, I knew the event word for word. It was a 3-day event.
That's amazing.
I knew what everyone was going to say because I had scripted the majority of the content for them, every slide, every detail. So
they pulled it off.
Yeah.
They listened to what you told them to do.
So I feel that, and the personal connections that come out of it, that's very gratifying for me. That's
really perfect. Yeah, Akeed, I think you're right. Like, you kind of made your mark. You've done everything in your like possible effort. Every team member, every person you work with, and then they nail it. And I don't think there's anything that kind of replaces that. So, thanks so much for sharing that, Ceem. Ceem, another question I want to talk about is, you're a leader, you're an entrepreneur, you're CEO of your company, and you're a woman now in 2024 in GCC and the MENA. As being a leader and competing with so many others out there, I don't want to make this kind of man versus woman, but, do you see, as being a strong, beautiful, entrepreneur that's going out in the market, do you see pushback? Are you still seeing, people all right, she's a lady, can we take her seriously? Do you feel that vibe still, or is it just, you bring what you bring, and then what I'm just curious to get your thoughts.
So we weren't raised in a household where we're three sisters. We weren't raised as women. We were raised as humans, that there was every opportunity was ours to take, to grab.
Yeah.
So we never grew up in a household where it was kind of men against women, or men have stronger voices. It was kind of, we're already equal. Given that, I understand that there's a huge divide. I've worked on studies with AUB and Sybil on this, closing the gap.
Right?
But for me, that has never hindered me, because it was, I earned my seat on this table. This is my voice. You want to work with me? Great. You don't? Bye. It's okay. It's not meant for me. So
exactly.
So that has been my approach. But I don't feel that
that pushback holding you back and being blocked in things.
Of course, you do get those random cases where they try to underestimate you as a woman, and personally, I don't take these clients on. So I'm privileged to be able to choose as well who I work with.
That's really amazing. Yeah. Awesome. And you mentioned, it seems to me based on kind of what you've shared with us, it's a people business. Yeah. It's human to human, right? We're sending emails, sending these phone calls. I guess, it would be interesting if you could share with us, what was kind of your secret to success when it came to, and you may have touched on this, working with clients, but is there something that Ceem does that's maybe a little bit different, or maybe your approach? This can be totally generic. I'm totally good with it, but I always like to pick people's brain. For me, it's killing them with kindness, being polite, being responsive, listening, just being present in the moment, right? And not, having this monkey mind where you're just waiting to respond versus listening. So I would love to hear maybe a little bit more on that, and how that has maybe made you successful.
So I don't want to sound conceited, but I do feel I get people, and because I have this kind of openness to me, they also respond to that.
This warmth, this openness is kind of
I have random people actually that I'll be at the hairdresser, and a woman would lean in who I've never met and would tell me about her life experience, and I would help her in any way that I can. So I think
validation.
It's asking questions. It's getting curious about people, the people that you work with as well. Just get curious. And then I've built a reputation to be very professional and very efficient, and one opportunity does bring another. So there was a friend referred someone to me. She's like, there's an article that I want to write. We had a 15-minute phone call. I'm like, got it. An hour later, she got the article. She sends my friend the text. She's like, I'm blown away. What is this?
No way.
And then from here, she linked me to another company that she's a founder of. So they're my ongoing client, and then linked me to another regional group. So it just
Connecting the dots.
Don't underestimate one single opportunity.
That's really great. Awesome. And and you talk about like building that pipeline, getting these clients, having, revenue to support this operation. And again, it's ongoing. And I think like what you said is what you put in is kind of what you put out. And I think it all matters, right? Like one client, it should be just as important as maybe your most important enterprise client, right? Each client matters, right?
Yep.
So I think, again, having an impact, and especially as you're starting a business, again, it's a personal people-to-people business. You build relationships, and it starts with one positive experience with you. So awesome.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
My clients, each one of them thinks they're my only client because of that dedication that there is.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's a big deal.
But that's what matters to me. It's that trust, that connection. I'll be there. I'll deliver. I'll do it. So
That's really amazing. Yeah. And I think that takes, sometimes to have some bad clients too, right? And bad experiences. I mean, we all go into this journey and we expect, hey, the perfect client, the perfect fit. They're so nice. And, sometimes we don't get that, right? And even in our world in software and what we're doing with eFlow and even my own personal consulting business, I mean, things sometimes don't work out, right? And that to me is being able to kind of learn from that, understand what I did wrong and move forward. But was there any like project or that maybe experience that you had that just blew up, man? Like, that's what I want to hear. Like, tell us the good stuff, man.
So what I've learned, I'm going to answer this in a more
Sure.
ambiguous
That's
way.
fine too.
What I've learned is know your worth and what you're offering. Put your price. If the person is going to come and underestimate that, then from the start, cut that off. And 2, trust your gut. I'll get on one call with a new client, and I'll be like, energy not working for me. And I would do something with the proposal so they'll reject it, or say, honestly, I can't take this on. Our plate is full, and so on. But trust your gut when it at least my gut has always been right. So
sure, because once you jump into the I guess you could say the circle with them, I mean, they can be very demanding. Maybe that work or expectation was not clear, and that's a great point. I think too, when it comes to like the actual proposal itself, I think 2 details matter. Like make sure you cover everything and deliverables and things like that. So that's really amazing.
And to also value your time. So people, not everyone, but many people or clients that I've worked with don't value my time. And for me, it was, I was just starting out again. So I'll be like, okay, I'll go through this cycle that feels very uncomfortable. But then it's okay to say no. It's okay to tell a client, honestly, this relationship is not working out.
I feel like people have trouble with that.
Yeah, and we need to learn that, and we need to be more vocal about it. So if you have 1 energy draining client and 3 good ones, you're going to be drained.
And if you need the money, how much is that client worth to you versus your, I guess, like well-being and your sanity, right?
Exactly.
So no, that's really great. So see, like, so for me, like, what do you see? What's next? Like, what's your big vision too? Like, I want to know, like, where do you see yourself? And obviously we talk about where do you see yourself in 10 years, but let's bring it down to more practical terms. Like, do you want Ment to become like this, like the kind of the go-to marketing or communications PR like platform for all these companies, or like, are you good with just kind of creating this like, this vibe, manageable clients, things like that, right? Because we talk about like growth and scale. Like, what's your ambition when it comes to that? And
much to the dismay of any entrepreneur that's hearing this, but I like the boutique element to it. I like the retaining the personalized service. I like getting and having the privilege to choose clients and working on projects that I'm passionate about, that I know I can excel at and add value to.
Sure.
So I don't see it as this multinational conglomerate that's taking over the world.
Each continent, each office,
I don't see that unless there's someone that sees that. I don't see that. That has been my approach from the start. But I definitely want to expand on the public speaking coaching side, because I do see a need for that in the market. both men and women and
Sure.
leaders. So yeah.
And that's a good point. You talk about public speaking and people going up, maybe feeling nervous. They have these knacks. They say, and I do the same. And for me, it was Toastmasters was kind of a medicine or a pill that I would try to take. I mean, it's not an actual pill, guys, just in case you're looking. But like for me, Toastmasters was a way to kind of like put myself out there and then just get feedback, right? Like, this is how I talk now. This is kind of current state where I'm at. And then, but what are some things that you've told CEOs or leaders that have helped them? I think maybe this could benefit our listeners too when it comes to public speaking.
So
it's terrifying, by the way.
It is. But it takes what I would say, and a recent example with a president, CEO of this company
Yes.
is that you're the subject matter expert. You know what you're talking about. When you walk into a room, 9 out of 10 people want you to succeed. If you're watching a talk or if you're in a conference, people want you to succeed. They're already on your side. So get them. And it takes 20 seconds of courage. Get that second sentence out. And you see the shift in body language.
Wow.
But after the first sentence, that's it. That's the most nerve-wracking thing. So you see people start using their hands more and relaxing more and engaging the audience. And another key thing is practice. Every uncomfortable situation that's for you to publicly speak, do it and take it.
Yeah.
Because you get better one time after
And
another.
practice, that can be just closing all the rooms in your house, getting inside, and like, do you recommend recording yourself?
Definitely.
Or just to kind of see, like,
One strategies that have worked for me that I've recommended are, yes, record yourself because you can hear your tone. How you speak. Draft whatever it is, the script, the speech, read it, and have an audience of people that you trust, and ask them also for feedback.
Sure.
So where to play with your tone, or where to stress on a point, or where to dramatically pause. So getting feedback is very important, and recording yourself is a little less daunting, but recommended.
There was another thing too, Ceem, is breathing.
Yeah.
Like, just breathe.
Yeah.
And to me, breathing exercises, calming yourself down before a speech, even as you speak, right? A lot of people, they just kind of like run out of breath and they are still talking. So they're just, it sounds weird, right? So what are some things on breathing? I mean, that's a big thing, right? I mean,
breathing, definitely. That's before you go on stage, deep breaths from your belly. Definitely do that. Breathe while you're on stage.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a second. It takes a second just to take a pause, a deep breath, and transition to another side of the stage. So there's a lot that we can share, but it's honestly, it's a case by case.
It's a whole nother,
It's a case by case.
Everyone kind of has their own maybe like challenges when it comes to that. So that's great. No, perfect. And so this is something you offer on a consultancy basis, right? Is it usually one-on-one it's booked?
One-on-one or groups.
Or groups as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll go on site, you'll do the actual training. That's amazing. And I'm sure have some amazing success stories from that as well, right?
I do. One recently comes to mind. We had the rehearsals for an event, and this person is very senior and was very nervous and was sweating and was jumbling his words.
For a big guy like that, you'd think,
but it's scary.
Yeah.
Speaking publicly is scary, and so took him aside. I gave him personalized advice. I'm like, what's scaring you? What is it? You're the expert of this topic. You're a senior leader. And gave him a few exercises like recording himself and scripting it and really practicing.
Wow.
And he shined.
Wow.
And I almost had tears in my eyes, but he really, really shined.
Sure.
And he came and he thanked me and he's like, thank you so much.
He transformed.
Yeah.
He transformed.
And I kept telling him, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to speak publicly and you will get better.
You will, exactly. And that's what's interesting, because if you do that, sometimes you bite off a little more than you can chew. But you're right. I think like those seminars, those different engagements where you can go speak, and it's all about feedback too, right? Like, how can I do better, like on the next iteration? So no, that's perfect. So, we're getting down towards the end of the podcast here, and first off, this has been amazing. Like, Ceem, you're awesome. Like, everything you've shared has been super valuable, at least like for me as well personally, and hopefully for my users. I'd love to leave with like a closing message. Is there something maybe you want to tell, like maybe there's a young Lebanese entrepreneur out there or anyone, right? That's trying to do something a little different and maybe do something a little non-traditional and instead of following kind of, as you mentioned, the footsteps of their parents and going up the corporate ladder, like share with us just some maybe some inspiration or some things that I think people could take away if they're on the fence about it, or maybe they're doing it and they're not sure if this is like where they want to go.
If they're not sure this is where they want to go, then they're probably not on the right path. So I would tell them to ask questions, actually dig deep and assess where they are in life and where they want to go. Goal setting has always been great exercise, but even with goal setting, and we always have like this vision of where we're heading, you will pivot and be open to pivot and changing your path if something is not working. I would also recommend to believe in yourself. That's very important.
Sure. Confidence, having self-confidence.
Exactly. Work on that. That's a continuous thing that you need to work on. And know what you're good at. Know what your strengths are. There's no reason for you to venture off into something that you know you may not succeed in. What are your strengths? Put your strengths forward. Seize every opportunity that there is. Spark a conversation. We met through
Tell us about that story.
We met at a conference where our leaders were telling us we're going to have 24/7 electricity, internet.
It was at the Phoenicia, I think, at the time.
And we just sat next to each other and we had a conversation. From that, a beautiful friendship came out of it, and now we're here. So just open doors for yourself. Have that courage to go out and ask for what it is that you want and put in the work. Cover all of your bases, all the foundations, go into every single detail, and then go out into the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really, that's super helpful. And thank you again, Ceem, for your time today. I mean, your journey and your success so far has been unbelievable. And I just want to wish you the best in your future and for Ment and all those that you kind of like impact along the way. So thank you, Ceem. Thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast. We're going to just go ahead and conclude today's episode. Stay tuned for more updates. Wishing you guys a fantastic rest of the week and take care. Thank you.